At my dad's wedding, my name wasn't near the front. It was buried at the last table, tucked between relatives I barely remembered. Not family. Just extras. We had to prioritize, my stepmom said, smiling like she was offering me champagne instead of an insult. My stepbrother sat proudly next to my dad, right at the head table. I forced a smile, leaned in just enough, and said, "Appreciate the clarity." Then I turned and walked out. Weeks later, they'd be begging me to come back. But the truth? I'd known for years my dad wasn't proud of me. He never had to say it, he's too polite for that. It was in the pauses, the way his voice shifted when people asked about me, or worse, the silence when he simply skipped over me. Ask about Ethan, my stepbrother, and Dad lights up like it's Christmas morning. He'll go on about the deals Ethan's closing, the company he's building, the investments that prove how driven he is. Ask about me? At best, you'll get a polite smile and a dismissive, "She's doing her thing." No stories, no pride, nothing worth expanding on. I didn't pick the path he wanted. I didn't chase money, power, or titles. I chose a career that mattered to me but felt small to him. And in his world, small meant invisible. So when I saw the seating chart, I shouldn't have been surprised. Dad and Linda right up front, of course. Ethan and his wife, his business partner, his closest circle, all placed carefully beside him like the chosen ones. Then me, table 14. A spot so far back it might as well have been in the parking lot. Distant cousins I hadn't seen since middle school. People who'd probably need a reminder of my name. For half a second, I thought maybe there was a mistake. Maybe my name was listed twice. Maybe someone had overlooked something. But then Linda leaned in, wine glass in hand, syrupy voice cutting clean. Well, we had to prioritize. I looked to Dad, waiting for him to catch it, to step in, to realize how cruel it sounded. But he didn't. He barely noticed me standing there. He was laughing with someone else, offering me only a distracted glance. Like seating me at the back was nothing, because to him, it was nothing. That was the moment. Not the chart. Not Linda's smirk. But the indifference. The effortless way he showed me I didn't matter. So I smoothed my dress, exhaled, and nodded once. Thanks for making this simple. Then I walked out. No scene, no tears, no slammed doors. Just heels clicking against the pavement as I headed for my car. I half expected my hands to shake, for my chest to tighten with anger or grief. Instead, there was only calm. Relief, even. Because for the first time, I didn't have to convince myself I was imagining things. They'd spelled it out for me, in front of everyone. I sat in my car for a while, staring at the venue lights. Waiting, maybe, for my phone to buzz. Dad realizing I was gone. An aunt texting, asking where I went. Anything. But nothing came. Inside, the music played on. Glasses clinked. No one noticed. That's when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so expected. I started the car, pulled out, and with each mile that slipped behind me, I felt lighter. Like I'd been dragging a weight for years, and finally let it go. The truth is, I'd been bracing for this long before the wedding. Even before Linda and Ethan became his favorites. It started with my career choice. I was a good student, grades, ambition, drive. Dad always assumed I'd go into business, law, something impressive, something that made real money. When I told him I wanted to be a nurse, he didn't yell, he didn't argue. He just sighed, disappointed. "You'll work endless hours for low pay," he said. "You'll be exhausted. Why set yourself up for that?" I told him I wanted to help people. His answer? "You could do that as a doctor, a surgeon. Why settle for the lowest option?" That was it. To him, I'd chosen less. After that, he never asked about my classes, never checked in on my first shifts at the hospital. But when Ethan launched a business, Dad invested. He bragged. Ethan was building. I was just working. It became a pattern. Ethan needed help, Dad gave it. I needed help, I got lectures. Figure it out yourself. So I did. I paid my own rent, picked up extra shifts, kept going. And still, the digs came. Tired? Well, you chose that job. Still renting? Should have made better decisions. Hope you enjoy night shifts forever. The irony? When Dad needed someone, it wasn't Ethan who showed up. It was me. I checked his blood pressure. I kept track of his meds after surgery. I drove him to appointments. And every single time, he brushed me off. You're not a real doctor. Or worse, stop making this a big deal. I should have walked away then. But I didn't. Because I thought, he's still my dad. That has to count for something. It didn't. And sitting in that parking lot, phone silent, I realized I was finally okay with that. No texts came that night. No apologies. No excuses. Nothing. I went home, slipped off my shoes, ordered takeout, scrolled through my phone like it was any other night. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying it anymore. The next morning, the messages started. Aunt Jan, hey, are you okay? Then a cousin, I saw you leave early, what happened? And eventually, Dad. Just, we need to talk. Not sorry. Not, I should have noticed. Just a command. I left it on read. And as the days passed, waiting for guilt to creep in, it never did. Instead, there was space. Breathing room. I worked my shifts, had coffee with friends, did normal things. For once, I wasn't replaying old conversations or making excuses for him in my head. I was free. I kept thinking maybe I should have spoken up. Or maybe I was just being overly sensitive. Instead, I said nothing, silence felt better. Peaceful, even. Then, about a week later, my aunt called. You should talk to your dad, she said. I didn't answer right away. Just waited. She sighed. He's in the hospital. For a second, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, just because of course. Then she added quickly, he's fine. But he needs help. That was it. Not he misses you, not he feels bad about what happened. Just he needs help. I should have expected it. My dad had brushed off his health for too long, high blood pressure, stress, a mess with his medications. Normally, I would have been the one catching the warning signs, reminding him to see a doctor, making sure he took things seriously. But this time, he was in the hospital and I wasn't picking up his calls. Suddenly, that mattered. The whole family scrambled. Linda called, I let it ring. Ethan tried, I ignored him, too. Aunt Jan gave it another shot. Look, I get why you're upset, she started. I raised an eyebrow. Do you? She hesitated. You know how he is. He doesn't mean things the way they sound. I let out a sharp breath. Really? Then explain what he did mean. Silence. Because she couldn't. Because he had meant it, every dismissive comment, every time he made me feel small. And now, he just wanted me back. That night, another text came in. From Dad. I need to talk to you. Not I'm sorry. Not I regret how things went. Just I need. I turned off my phone. He was discharged a week later. The problem? He wasn't better, he needed long-term care. And that costs money. Before, I had been free labor, checking vitals, tracking meds, keeping him on track. Now they'd have to hire someone, and he couldn't afford it. Linda made one last attempt. I think we should put the past behind us, she said. I nearly spit out my coffee. Oh, do you? Now that he needs me? Your dad is struggling. This is family business. I let out a short laugh. Family? That's funny, because a few weeks ago, I was shoved at the cousin table. She went quiet. So which is it? I asked. Am I part of this family, or just someone you can ignore until I'm useful? That's not fair, she muttered. Neither was your seating chart. I hung up. I'm not sure what happened after that. Maybe they found a nurse. Maybe Ethan stepped in. All I knew was the calls stopped. For a while, it seemed like that was it, they'd figure something out without me. Then Linda showed up at my work. It was a slow afternoon at the clinic. I was finishing paperwork when I heard her at the front desk, telling the receptionist she was here to see her stepdaughter. Urgent. My eyes closed for a moment. Linda. Of course. The receptionist was already explaining that personal visits weren't allowed, but Linda had that pushy sweet tone that usually got her what she wanted. I stepped out before it turned into a scene. What are you doing here? I asked, arms folded. She smiled like we were catching up. I just wanted to talk. We already talked. On the phone. Her smile flickered. This isn't about me. It's about your father. I cut her off with a raised hand. No. You don't get to throw him into the conversation like that changes anything. He's not doing well, she said softly. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, that's what happens when you ignore your health for years. She tried again. It's getting worse. We can't afford full-time care. Then maybe you should have prioritized better, I replied. She froze, she knew exactly what I meant. This isn't the time for grudges, she pushed. He's your father. I stayed silent. Because there was nothing left to say. If he needs care, hire someone, I told her. Or ask Ethan, the golden child. Her jaw tightened. He's busy. I almost laughed. Right. Figures. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. You owe him, she hissed, low enough that no one else would hear. There it was, the truth. I pulled my hand free. No, I don't. Then I walked away. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. A week later, my dad called. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Hey, he said after a pause. I leaned on the counter. What do you want? He exhaled. Linda told me she saw you. She did. Another silence, then, I think we should talk. In person. I laughed. Now you want to see me? He ignored that. Come by the house. Dinner. Just us. I glanced at the clock. You know, if you'd asked me that a year ago, I would have been thrilled. I paused. But we both know this isn't about dinner. He sighed. Just come. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The next night, I walked back into the house. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It hadn't for a long time. Dad was already at the table. Takeout containers on the counter. He never cooked. I sat. For a while, we ate in silence. Then finally, he spoke. So, how's work? I almost laughed. You don't care about my job, Dad. He flinched. That's not true. Really? Because last I remember, you thought it was a waste of my life. He rubbed his temple. Look, I didn't ask you here to fight. Then why am I here? He hesitated, then admitted it. I need your help. There it was. The real reason. I set my fork down. You mean you need free medical care? I wouldn't phrase it that way. Then how would you? He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I just figured, since you know all this stuff, maybe you could save us some money. A long sigh escaped him. Why are you making this so difficult? I blinked. You know what's ironic? That's exactly what used to run through my head. Every time I covered for you, every time I stayed and made sure you were okay when no one else bothered, and still, you acted like I was never enough. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? I gestured toward the room. Where was this concern when Linda sat me at the kids' table at your wedding, and you just let it happen? Silence. He had nothing to say. I shook my head slowly. You don't want a daughter. You want free medical care. That's not true. Then what do you want from me, Dad? Really? I leaned forward, searching his face. Tell me. His mouth opened, then closed again. No answer. That was the last time I saw him. He sent a few more texts after that. I ignored every one. Eventually, the messages stopped. Months later, my aunt told me he'd finally hired a nurse. A professional, someone who charged by the hour. And guess what? He could hardly afford it. Ethan didn't chip in. Linda complained non-stop about the cost, but of course, she never volunteered to take care of him herself. Me? I was exactly where I wanted to be. A year passed. Out of nowhere, a message came from an unknown number. Your dad's back in the hospital. Thought you should know. I stared at the screen, then quietly blocked the number. Didn't look back. 2 years on, I barely thought about my dad at all. Not in that maybe I should check in kind of way. Every so often, family gossip filtered through. His health was declining, money was tight, Linda was stressed, but none of it had anything to do with me. And honestly? I was fine with that. More than fine. Without the endless pressure to prove myself, without the constant exhaustion of trying to earn a place where I wasn't wanted, my life actually felt lighter. My job was demanding, sure, but I liked it. I had real friends, people who valued me. I traveled. I started saving for things that mattered to me. Meanwhile, my dad was left with exactly what he had chosen. A wife who stayed because she had nowhere else to go. A son too busy counting investments to even pick up the phone. And a mountain of medical bills. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until Liam, my cousin, reached out. I know you don't want to hear this, but it's serious. I stared at his text, debating whether to reply. Finally, I typed, serious how? Your dad's broke. He had to sell the house. I blinked. That house wasn't just a house. It was the one he clung to after the divorce, the one he and Linda had fixed up over the years. He loved that house. Where is he now? Some cheap rental. He's been asking everyone for money. I let out a breath. Of course. Not worry, not regret, just another attempt to get something out of me. Let me guess, I wrote. He told you to contact me. No, Liam admitted. Linda did. Of course she did. 2 days later, Linda herself called. I let it ring. She left a voicemail. I know you're upset, but we need to talk. No, we didn't. I deleted it. A month later, another text. Different number this time. Your dad's in the hospital again. Just thought you should know. Same routine. I blocked it. 3 months later, I ran into Ethan at a coffee shop. Sharp suit, expensive watch, the whole picture of someone who'd never had to struggle. He spotted me before I could slip away. Well, look who it is, he said with that smug grin. Ethan, I nodded politely. He glanced at my scrubs. Still doing the nurse thing, huh? I exhaled through my nose. Still ignoring Dad's calls? The grin vanished. What do you expect me to do? He put himself there. I tilted my head. He gave you everything, and you can't even lift a finger now? Ethan scoffed. You didn't help either. Yeah, I said flatly. Because he treated me like nothing. What's your excuse? No answer. Because he didn't have one. 6 months later, Liam told me Dad had ended up in a nursing facility. The kind barely scraping by. The only place he could afford. Ethan really won't help? I asked. Nope. Won't even visit. I nodded. That sounded about right. I thought about going once, just to see him. To see if he looked different. But I already knew how it would go, no apology, no acknowledgement of the past. Just expectations. Just me stepping back into a role I'd already walked away from. And I wasn't doing that. Ever again. A year later, sitting in the break room, the news was on. A business segment featuring Ethan, smiling in a glass office, talking about expansion and investments. I stared at the screen. That man, who couldn't spare a cent for his father, was thriving. And my dad, who had chosen him, who had dismissed me, was in a rundown facility, alone. And that's when I realized I had already won. Not in some bitter, revenge-filled way, but in the only way that mattered. I had built a life worth living. My own. And Dad? He was living the one he had built, too. A future born from favoritism, neglect, and dismissal. It wasn't karma. It wasn't payback. It was just reality. The last message I got was from Liam. Dad passed away last night. Thought you should know. I stared at it for a while. No tears, no relief, just nothing. And that said it all. I typed back, thanks for letting me know. Then I put my phone down and got ready for my shift. Because unlike my father, I still had people who depended on me.